Today we're exploring the World War II tanks that were dangerously flawed, poorly protected, or simply outmatched on the battlefield. Starting with number 1, the Panzer I. Built in Germany beginning in 1934, was never meant to be a real fighting tank at all, but a training vehicle rushed into combat out of desperation. Deployed in Spain during the Civil War and later in Poland and France, it carried only 2 machine guns and armor barely thick enough to stop rifle fire. Its crews quickly discovered that against anything larger than infantry, the Panzer I simply had nothing to fight back with. Losses mounted rapidly whenever it met enemy armor, and commanders learned the hard way that a tank without a real gun was a liability dressed up as an asset. Its main legacy was proving, at great cost in men and machines, exactly what a tank should never be. Number 2, the Renault R35, France's most numerous tank in 1940, embodied a doctrine already a generation out of date by the time German forces crossed the border. Designed for slow infantry support rather than mobile warfare, it moved at a crawl and carried a short-barreled gun incapable of penetrating modern German armor at range. Its one-man turret forced the commander to load, aim, and fire alone while trying to observe the battlefield, an impossible workload that slowed reactions in critical moments. During the Battle of France, hundreds were destroyed or abandoned as German panzer divisions outmaneuvered them entirely. Crews who survived often spoke of feeling blind and helpless inside a machine that could barely see, let alone strike back. Number 3, the WW1 bis. France's heaviest tank of the era, looked formidable on paper with thick armor and 2 guns, yet its design hit a fatal compromise. The hull-mounted cannon could only be aimed by turning the entire tank, a slow and clumsy process under fire, while the commander again bore the burden of loading and firing the turret gun alone. Fuel capacity was so limited that several WW1s ran dry during critical engagements in May 1940, leaving crews stranded and exposed to German anti-tank fire. Despite occasional tactical successes against lighter German tanks, its complexity and short range made it unreliable when speed and endurance mattered most, and many were captured largely intact after simply running out of fuel. Number 4, the M3 and its British variant the Grant rushed into American production in 1941 before a proper turret design was ready, forced engineers into an awkward compromise that troubled crews from the start. Its main gun sat fixed low in a side sponson rather than a rotating turret, meaning the entire tank had to be repositioned just to aim at a target, a fatal delay in fast-moving desert engagements in North Africa. Standing nearly 10 feet tall, it presented an unmistakable silhouette that German gunners at El Alamein learned to spot and target with ease. Riveted armor plating added another danger, as incoming rounds could shear off rivets inside the hull and turn them into lethal fragments ricocheting among the crew. Many tank commanders privately regarded it as an interim solution that cost lives while better designs were finalized. Number 5, the Crusader, Britain's primary cruiser tank through much of the North African campaign starting in 1941, promised speed but delivered mechanical heartbreak instead. Its Nuffield Liberty engine, adapted hastily from an aging Aero design, suffered from chronic cooling failures in the desert heat, leaving tanks stranded mid-battle far more often than enemy fire ever did. Thin armor and an underpowered 2-pounder gun left it outclassed against German Panzer IIIs and IVs equipped with more effective weaponry. British crews grew to dread long approach marches, knowing breakdowns were nearly guaranteed before they even reached the enemy. Entire squadrons were sometimes reduced by mechanical attrition alone, turning promising offensives into logistical nightmares before a single shot was exchanged with the Germans. Number 6, the Covenanter, developed in Britain in 1940 as a fast cruiser tank, never fired a shot in anger, yet still claimed a grim reputation among the men who trained on it. Its radiators, oddly positioned at the front of the hull, caused persistent overheating that made sustained operation nearly impossible even in Britain's mild climate. Engineers reworked the cooling system repeatedly without solving the underlying flaw, and the vehicle was ultimately judged unfit for combat and relegated entirely to training duties. Crews joked bitterly that the tank could not survive a summer afternoon, let alone a battlefield, and its failure quietly shaped later British tank designs that prioritized reliability far more heavily. Number 7, the Panzer 38T. Originally a Czechoslovak design absorbed into German service after 1939, performed capably in the early campaigns of Poland and France, but was pushed far beyond its limits as the war escalated. Its modest armor and light gun, adequate against 1939 opposition, became dangerously insufficient once it faced Soviet T-34s and KV-1s on the Eastern Front from 1941 onward. German crews increasingly found themselves in vehicles that could be destroyed at ranges where their own weapons could barely scratch the enemy. Germany, despite continual upgrades that extended its service life. The fundamental mismatch between its origins as a light interwar tank and the demands of a brutal new war left many crews acutely aware they were outgunned before battle even began. Number 8. The Sherman M4, America's most mass-produced tank of the war beginning in 1942, carried a reputation among Allied crews that became infamous on both sides of the front line. Its gasoline-fueled engine and stored ammunition made it prone to catastrophic fires when penetrated, earning grim nicknames like Ronson among British troops and Tommy Cooker among German soldiers who faced it. Against German Panthers and Tigers in Normandy during 1944, thinner frontal armor and an underpowered 75mm gun in earlier models often meant Shermans had to fire multiple rounds just to disable a single enemy tank, absorbing devastating losses in the process. Crews adapted with tactics like flanking maneuvers and welding extra armor plates for protection, but the psychological toll of watching tank after tank erupt in flame left a lasting scar on veterans who survived the campaign. Number 9. The Tiger I, unveiled by Germany in 1942 as a symbol of armor dominance, proved as much a burden to its own side as a threat to its enemies. Weighing nearly 57 tons, it demanded enormous fuel supplies and constant maintenance that increasingly strained German logistics as the war turned against them. Its complex overlapping road wheel suspension, while smoothing the ride, became a nightmare in muddy or frozen conditions, often freezing solid on the eastern front and immobilizing tanks that had never even engaged the enemy. Breakdowns and abandoned vehicles due to mechanical failure frequently outnumbered combat losses, and crews grew accustomed to destroying their own disabled Tigers to prevent capture. Its devastating 88mm gun made it deadly in the right circumstances, but that power meant little to crews stranded roadside, waiting for recovery vehicles that rarely came in time. Number 10. The Panther, introduced by Germany in 1943 as a direct response to the T-34, combined excellent frontal armor and a powerful gun with a transmission and final drive system that never fully matured under wartime production pressure. Rushed into service ahead of schedule for the Battle of Kursk, many Panthers suffered engine fires and mechanical breakdowns before reaching the front line, undermining an offensive that depended heavily on their success. The complex, slope design that made it so effective in a straight fight also made it costly and difficult to manufacture and repair consistently. German crews respected its firepower, but feared its unreliability, knowing that a long road march alone could cripple a vehicle without a single enemy shot fired, a paradox that haunted one of the war's most formidable-looking tanks. Number 11. The Ferdinand, later modified into the Elephant, emerged from Germany in 1943 as a heavily armored tank destroyer built on a rejected Tiger prototype chassis, and its origin story foreshadowed its troubles. Armed with a powerful 88mm gun capable of destroying enemy armor at extreme range, it nonetheless lacked any secondary machine gun for close defense, an oversight that proved catastrophic at Kursk when Soviet infantry swarmed immobilized vehicles and destroyed them with explosives at point-blank range. Its massive weight also strained transmissions and bridges alike, leading to frequent breakdowns during the advance. Crews who survived the battle described a terrifying vulnerability once their vehicles stopped moving, unable to fend off infantry threats that a simple machine gun could easily have solved. Number 12. The Maus, Germany's most extreme tank project beginning in 1943, never saw combat, yet its very existence illustrates how far design ambition outpaced practicality. Weighing over 180 tons, it was too heavy for nearly every bridge in Europe and required specially reinforced routes just to move short distances. Its engine, though powerful, could barely propel the vehicle at walking pace, and its enormous size made it an unmissable target for aircraft and artillery alike. Only prototypes were ever completed before the program was abandoned, but German engineers themselves privately doubted any crew could operate it effectively in real combat conditions. The Maus stands less as a tank than a cautionary lesson in how obsession with size can eclipse battlefield reality entirely. Number 13. The T-34, the Soviet Union's iconic medium tank from 1940 onward, is remembered for its sloped armor and reliable engine, yet its early production models carried serious flaws that cost countless Soviet lives before improvements arrived. Its cramped two-man turret forced the commander to also serve as gunner, drastically slowing target acquisition and reaction time in combat. Poor early optics and a lack of radios in most vehicles left crews nearly blind to threats and unable to coordinate with neighboring tanks. During the catastrophic battles of 1941, thousands of T-34s were destroyed or abandoned, not always from enemy fire, but from crews unable to fight effectively within a design that outpaced its own ergonomics. Later three-man turret models corrected these issues, but the early war years exposed how brilliant armor and firepower meant little without a crew able to use them. Number 14. The KV-1, the Soviet Union's heavy tank fielded from 1939, intimidated German forces with armor that early anti-tank guns struggled to penetrate, yet its own mechanical shortcomings often did more damage than any enemy weapon. Its transmission, strained by the tank's excessive weight, failed frequently during long marches, and its slow speed made coordinated maneuvers with lighter tanks nearly impossible. During the 1941 invasion, entire columns of KV-1s were abandoned not from combat losses, but from breakdowns that outstripped available spare parts and trained mechanics. Crews respected its survivability under fire, but grew frustrated watching capable tanks immobilized by their own drivetrains, turning a nearly invulnerable design into a stationary target waiting for German engineers or aircraft to finish the job. Number 15. The M1340, Italy's primary medium tank during the North African campaign beginning in 1940, entered battle already outdated against the British and later American forces it faced. Riveted armor construction, similar to early American designs, created the same danger of rivets breaking loose inside the hull under impact, injuring crews even when the armor itself held. Chronic engine overheating in the desert compounded reliability problems, while a modest gun struggled against increasingly well-armored Allied tanks. Italian crews, often undersupplied and operating with limited fuel reserves, faced not only combat losses but stranded vehicles abandoned during retreats across Libya and Egypt. The M13/40 story reflects a broader pattern of Italian armored forces entering a mechanized war without the industrial base to keep pace. Number 16. The L3-35 Tankette, a small Italian vehicle originally conceived in the early 1930s but still widely used in 1940, carried armor so thin that even heavy machine gun fire could penetrate it at close range. Armed only with machine guns and offering minimal protection, it was hopelessly outclassed against any dedicated tank it encountered in North Africa and the Balkans. Its two-man crew operated in extremely cramped conditions with poor visibility, making it difficult to spot threats before they became lethal. Used more as a reconnaissance or infantry support vehicle, it suffered heavy losses whenever committed to direct combat roles it was never designed for. Surviving crew accounts describe a persistent sense of vulnerability, knowing their vehicle offered barely more protection than an armored car. Number 17. The Type 95 Hago, Japan's standard light tank from 1935 through most of the Pacific War, reflected a military strategy that consistently underestimated the armor its forces would eventually face. Thin steel plating, sufficient against the lightly armed Chinese forces it first encountered, proved disastrously inadequate once American Sherman tanks and even some anti-tank rifles arrived in the Pacific theater from 1943 onward. Its high-pitched engine noise made stealth nearly impossible, often alerting enemy positions before the tank came into view. In battles across islands like Tarawa and Saipan, Hago tanks were frequently destroyed in one-sided engagements, sometimes penetrated by weapons never intended to defeat armor at all. Japanese tank crews increasingly found themselves committed to hopeless assaults, their vehicles offering little more than a slower path to the same outcome as infantry charges. Number 18. The Type 97 Chiha, Japan's more advanced medium tank introduced in 1937, still fell dramatically short of the standards set by its American and Soviet counterparts as the Pacific War progressed. Its low-velocity main gun, adequate for infantry support early in the war, could not reliably penetrate the frontal armor of later American tanks it encountered on islands such as Iwo Jima and Okinawa. Riveted and welded armor construction remained thin by 1940 standards, leaving crews exposed even to medium machine gun fire in prolonged engagements. Japanese commanders often used Chiha tanks in static defensive positions rather than mobile warfare, tacitly acknowledging their vehicles could not survive open engagements. For the crews inside, this meant serving essentially as dug-in artillery, aware that any direct assault from Allied armor would likely be their last. Number 19. The Churchill Mark I and Mark II, Britain's early infantry tanks introduced in 1941, entered service burdened by an underpowered engine and mechanical issues that plagued their combat debut at Dieppe in 1942. Many Churchills broke down or became stuck on the beach's shingle terrain before reaching their objectives, leaving crews exposed to German fire while immobilized and unable to fight back effectively. Early models also carried a gun too weak to challenge German armor directly, limiting their usefulness even when mechanically sound. The disastrous Dieppe raid exposed these flaws publicly, forcing rapid revisions to engine reliability and armament in later variants. For the men who fought at Dieppe, the Churchill's teething problems were not abstract statistics, but the difference between reaching cover and being cut down on an open beach.